Hi. Yeah, as you can see on the slide, my name is Travis. I graduated actually from college last year where I studied statistics and computer science. Started at Facebook last August, so I'm currently in my second rotation. My first one was in the ads team where I worked on the targeting platform and just our quality efforts to make sure that we're providing value to advertisers accurately. And this team, I'm working on Facebook videos, just trying to make the video watching experience on Facebook as meaningful and social as we can.
Hi everyone, my name is Melissa, and I also started last August, and before that I was studying computer science at Stanford, and I also started in ads just like Travis, and I was focusing on improving the advertiser experience side and really trying to improve our product quality in the ads platform. And now I'm on Instagram. I am doing a bunch of different stuff in the growth team, but especially thinking about how the EU regulations will apply to Facebook and Instagram, and working on a platform team.
Hi everyone, my name is Han. I took a pretty circuitous path to becoming a product manager at Facebook. So I started my career in management consulting. Then I went and did business operations at LinkedIn. I was previously a product manager at a startup called NerdWallet, where I built tools to help consumers make better financial decisions. And at Facebook, I work on products to help connect businesses to consumers.
Hey everyone, my name is Rotimi. I also had a non-traditional path into product management. Before this, I worked in corporate finance. I was an analyst at Goldman Sachs in San Francisco. But I wanted to return a little bit closer to my roots of something I studied in school, which was computer science. And I joined Facebook in January, started with the newer class of RPMs that just came through. So that's a little bit about us. I know I blazed through it before, but the Facebook Rotational Product Management Program is something that happens over 18 months. And you come in and you have the opportunity to work on 3 different teams for roughly 6 months each. So Travis and Melissa are finishing up their second rotations. Me and Han are finishing up our first rotations. And we're hoping to talk a little bit about the experience of ramping up on a new team. For me and Han, this is not a team that went after. This is a team that was prescribed to us, and so there's interesting tidbits about our experiences with that. And for Travis and Melissa, they're gonna talk about the first rotation, but also talk about a rotation that they pursued in their second cycle. So the first 100 days, how should we be thinking about it? And we've tried to sort of build it out into a series of questions that we're going to be asking our panelists, but also just diving into more detail and leaving the floor open for Q&A later, which is onboarding, how are we building structure, how we think about execution on our teams, and then how we think about team management as well. And how do we figure out who the key players are on the teams that we're joining. So to start off, I want to talk a little bit about onboarding. This was something that for all of us in some ways was daunting as we came in. And we had to quickly understand how we're going to ramp up on our team, understand context, figure out what the lay of the land is and where the projects are. And so I'm going to kick it off with Travis and ask, as you thought about joining your first team, what strategies did you implement to onboard quickly and effectively?
Yeah, so some of this stuff, I guess, might sound basic, but it's always good to hear it because I think starting on a new team, it's always very uncertain, like who should I ask for each thing? What are the most important things for our team? What are the metrics we care about? So I think when it comes to onboarding, especially for my first team, which was ads, which I have no prior experience in, a lot of my first few weeks were spent just meeting with each of the members of my team and just keeping a running talk of asking them what are the most important things that you think we're doing this half, what are the most important things we did last half, and for the challenges that we're facing this half, what are the main blockers and why. And then I think going through each of these things from the different perspectives of hearing what the data scientists think about every day, and hearing what the designers are worried about, hearing about what engineers are worried about, you can start to form the picture of what the different priorities on your team are. If you get a sense that, say, the engineers are really worried about part A of the solution, but to the designers, the data scientists, they don't even care about that, they're worried about parts B and C. you can start to see where the gaps are and make sure that, okay, this is something that I'll need to clarify with my team as a whole to make sure that we can work together. So I think that's one really effective way to just get started and start trying to help your team communicate with each other. I think another one is that for each, and some leaders said this, but I think for each person that you meet, when you're onboarding onto a new team or a new company, you always ask them at the end of your talk, like, who are the 3 people that you think I need to meet next? And then you just put that list down and you meet with those people. Eventually they'll start telling you names that you've already met before. Once you kind of close that cycle, you can probably feel in a pretty good place that you've met everybody that you need to. You can start aggregating information and pulling people together.
Anybody else on the panel want to speak about their first few days, building context?
Yeah, everything Travis said is very valuable. And one, I think part of our PAM program that makes this even better is that you get to do this exact same thing 3 times. So each time you can actually think back and like try to improve what you did in the last time. So that has been very helpful to me. And I think most of the time when people are onboarding to teams, they think like they will never have to do that again. So it's almost like you do it, go through it, and forget about it. But in this one, what I started to do, and it was something that I wished I did in my first one too, is that kind of keep track of the things that I saw around me. I was like, wow, when this person started the team, they did this really well. I wish I did that. Or like, wow, if I did this in the first week, it would be very helpful to me. Or like, wow, like what I did in the first week actually really helped me in my 7th week. Like, what is that? Kind of keep track of that, like have a mental note. And similar to Travis, I really deeply valued meeting people when you first start a team. But maybe a little differently is I try to ask the same questions to the same people, almost trying to make a dynamic map out of the team. Because like if you hear the same problems or maybe different takes on the same questions, you really understand what each person stands for. And it really also shows you, this has nothing to do being a product manager, but like when you're new to any environment, you know, you are looking to make friends. And like you can really see those little small wins as well. Like what can you make better in that first week in other people's lives that help you make friends, right? So asking the same questions and really focusing the meetings on learning about them and maybe like less about the general project goal or helped me to do that. And then in your second one, obviously, you can move into those questions.
Yeah, what I was going to add is that I think what Melissa's getting to is there's really 2 parts to onboarding. So one is building the topical expertise, the knowledge of what the team is going after, building the background of the industry or experience that you're in. But the second piece is really actually learning the team dynamics and understanding who does what on the team and what people dynamics there are. Because the core part of being a product manager is actually leading a team and motivating other people who don't directly report to you to do the things that you're trying to get everyone to do. So I think when I onboard, I always think about over-indexing on the people piece first rather than the topical piece. Because the topical piece will always come, but you'll be ineffective until you get to a point where you have the trust of the team.
And actually, just to add something different, this is something I've been realizing recently. And most of the time when we talk about onboarding, we think about that as input. Like we try to consume as much as possible about the team, about the people. You try to learn and ramp up. And from a few people around me, what I've seen and like made me say, wow, they're doing great, was that in those first week, they also tried to put outputs. They, while they were trying to ramp up and learn about the people and the team, the goal, roadmaps, or whatever, at the same time, they really, maybe it was a little crunchy in those weeks, but tried to make different posts about what they think about the vision, who they are, and what they think about a particular project, or if they had feedback for something. It could be a small part of the product, but still offer feedback. And when you see people outputting stuff, you're also like, wow, they're really owning the team. Like, I trust this person, right? It's the first week and they're crushing it. It's not only input, but they're putting lots of output. So that's something I'm trying to do myself as well.
There you go. So, yeah, I have nothing more to say on the matter. I think that's one thing that is really interesting is just being able to separate out, building context of your own, as we've talked about, but also establishing these relationships, and they will not be the same. I had, as I joined my team, I had some meetings with product leads, product marketing leads that were very focused in on, okay, understanding their background, how long they've been on the team, what they've been working on, and that for them was a way for us to build common currency. But for the people I was working every day with, like the data scientist, product marketing manager, things like that, it was a walking meeting, it was lunch, it was catching the game after work. It was an opportunity for us to just have a little bit more of a casual environment, because if we could sort of set that rapport, then when we have messages to send to each other at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m., it's not coming from a place of this person's trying to jam me up, but like, okay, this is something that's high priority for someone that's very close to me and my team, and I'll respond to it because they need this. And so finding out that balance of, there's a mix of seniority, there's a mix of how much you'll be interacting with the people, there's a mix of just getting on people's roadmap and just getting on their radar is a very important thing, and it looks very different for people. So I think for me that was a little bit of the trickiest part as I joined my first team, was it's not gonna look the same for everyone. 15-minute meeting, a 30-minute meeting, an hour-long meeting, like it's gonna look different for every single person you meet, and even though the questions may say the same, the questions may be different. It's just being dynamic enough to know that not one sort of cookie cutter fits every situation. So, as we jump into the next part, we think about creating routine and building structure of teams that we're on. And I think this is a delicate balance for all of us that join our teams, because as we come into teams, there are all these preconceived notions of what we should be doing and what we should be driving and the ways we should be helping elevate and improve the product. But at the end of the day, a lot of these teams have working structures and have routine already, and there has to be sort of this happy mix that will allow the team to succeed. So we hope to hear a little bit about the experiences of how were you able to figure out who the key stakeholders were on the team, and how to figure out what they viewed about the product, but how did you also figure out like who to trust with what early on, and how to get feedback on if you're sort of moving things in the right direction, or you're not moving things fast enough, and what that looks like. So, Melissa, you want to kick us off?
Yeah. I mean, hopefully also before you start the team, there's been a few people who you talked to before and you're already feeling a little close to. But this is a tricky one because like most of the time there's this common misconception that people tend to, think the key stakeholders are the ones that talk the most, or that are more outgoing, talk most in the meetings. Actually, it may be really different according to teams because how people work are very different. So what I try to do is first observe, like for a few weeks. Of course, like when I have input, I never hold back, but at the same time, maybe just take 10 seconds in my mind and think about, like observe what each person is saying, who people are looking to, who people are asking questions, when they are offering an answer, where the answer, when they're asking a question, where the answer is coming from, and just kind of, I think it's more about the room dynamics as well in the first few weeks. But the key thing that helped me was just observing before jumping into conclusions and just like trying to offer my insight, because that's something that the new people have a lot, right? I have always had that burning desire. Oh wow, like I just started in this team, I have to start contributing right away, because if you're starting new, like you want to prove that you are trying to be impactful. But on the contrary, like holding that back a little bit and just observing, understanding really helped me. And about the trust part, so I think this really changes from person to person, but I'm somebody who really prefers to be honest from the get-go. So if you can like identify the goals that you can align a few people around, like your team around, and for each person be very honest about, look, this is my goal, this is our team's goal, this is your goal. So how about, like I'm a person who loves to work together and get to this goal together. my success is your success is mine, and the teams and the companies. So establishing that trust and taking that vulnerable step maybe first was something that helped me, but I understand that maybe it doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah, I think along the same lines of how important establishing that trust is and how some of these misconceptions can affect how you perceive your team when you join. I think one of the ones that I really struggled with when I started was this notion that the product manager is supposed to, I guess, magically know the answer to everything, or like immediately understand what's happening with the team and like can come up with a solution immediately. So what that meant was that in the early days of my first team, in particular, I would be really worried about like, oh man, this person asked a question, I didn't know the answer, or like, there's a problem that I see, but I don't know what to do about it, or I have no idea what my designers are talking about, but I don't really know how to provide a response or just signal that to them. And I think, well, what I've learned is that it really helps building that trust that Melissa's talking about, to be honest and to say, hey, like, I want to help you do your job better. So what is there I can help you with? And I think asking that question a lot in early one-on-ones is something that helped establish trust too, is that somebody can feel comfortable coming to you from their side also not knowing all the answers, right? So that for them, it's not like my conversation with the PM is coming up, I better make sure I like have all the answers and I'm like nervous about what to say to them because they'll judge me. Instead, it's opening up the dialogue so that for me to my designer, or me to my data scientist, or whoever it may be, we have this mutual understanding that we're here to help each other. That if there's something the data scientist is like, hey, I'm doing this analysis, but I honestly don't really get why, and then I can provide the answer like, oh, this is why our team is focusing on this. Or if I'm asking the data scientist, I don't get why these two different features, performed differently. Can you help me understand that? Then they can help me with that too. And I think just building that mutual understanding and trust is really important. And so that second question of how did you figure out who to trust with what, it's literally just by asking. Just ask people what they're working on, what you can help them with, and they'll tell you. And I think that's been like probably one of the most effective like working relationship building things that I've seen happen over teams is just starting with an honest dialogue instead of trying to put up a front of knowing everything ahead of time.
I think what you said, like one thing what you said was very important. It's not an intuitive thing to say you don't know when you don't know, but like I realized it actually really creates respect in people's eyes too when you can admit what you don't know. Like especially, I don't know, if you're on the younger side, the less experienced side, or even like whoever you are, it's just difficult to say you don't know. But saying, oh, I don't know, but I think we can figure out together this way, just like any opinion. It could be, oh, maybe this person knows, let's go ask together, or I can do this for you, to figure it out. That really that takes away that barrier immediately. Oh, like, she doesn't know. Like, product managers are not supposed to know everything, but then, you should be able to maybe come up with a quick way that you can figure out together. That was super important. And
yeah, and if you say I don't know, let me follow up with you. As long as you actually follow up, then it's great. You just have to actually do it. But it's something where like somebody comes to you with a question and you say, I don't know, I'll follow up with you, let's try to ask this person. It's the understanding that like you don't pretend to know the answer, but you're going to try to figure it out for them so that they can do their job better. And I think that's like the most important takeaway. If you do know the answer, that's awesome. But if you don't, that's okay too.
And I think also, most of the time we feel like we should give the answer too. So sometimes even when I know the answer, I'd be like, you know what, like, no, like, let me not say anything. What do you think? Like, how would they come to the answer? Because I always think of my job as a product manager is that my job is to bring the team to a level that they can exist without me. And like, if everybody is asking a question to me and like waiting for a response, I feel like I'm not doing my job well. But then if you actually build capacity, that's what we call a capacity building, that they can come to the like same similar answer like basically the correct answer, following a set of like good frameworks, then I feel like I would be doing my job well. So sometimes it's also an interesting exercise to do, even if you know the answer. What do you think? How would you come up to this answer? Like doing that to capacity build was a problem.
Sure. So I think we've talked quite a bit about identifying the key stakeholders on your team, but I think what you'll find is, unless you're working at a super small startup where you're the only product manager, sometimes the key stakeholders are actually people who sit outside of your team. So at Facebook, this is particularly true because all of our products build on each other. And so sometimes the most valuable thing you can do for your team is actually figure out who are the core products that you have to depend on to make your product successful, and go and make sure that you understand what their goals are, what they're trying to accomplish, and get them bought into the goals that you're trying to accomplish as well, because that unblocks your team, that gives your team someone consistent to work with on a different team so that they can always have someone to answer their questions, and it's one of the ways that you can build capacity for your team as well.
These guys covered a lot about how to build capacity, how to make sure you understand the key stakeholders. Again, there's not too much more I'm going to layer on here, but the two things I really found myself asking or having conversations with when I was meeting people and trying to figure out what the routine and like how to figure out how to be effective in my first few days. One of which is actually trying to explain to people whatever the context that you're building and making sure it's right. And the reason I like to do that is you'll meet people who are often thinking about a problem through their own lens, right? So the data scientist is thinking about it from an analytics lens. The product marketer is thinking about it from an external party lens. You might have your engineers thinking about it from a performance lens. And so when you come to each one of those people with context, they can help correct some of the little things that might be off about how you're viewing the work or the problem or the product or whatever it may be. So one thing I often found myself doing very early on is like, okay, I figured out who the people on the team, we have some sort of working rapport, I'm getting ready to start ramping up and sort of thinking about how we're going to be executing for a quarter, a half, a year, whatever it might be. Clearly it's only a half for me. But what I would say is like, hey, this is my context of what we're trying to do here. And I'd maybe take 5 minutes or 6 minutes to just explain that. I'd stop, and then I'd be like, if you were to correct that, what would you say? Just to make sure that one, I'm again building in and layering in what they find important into the context of what we're doing together as a team. But two, also to just make sure I have my head on the right direction. Making sure that as I'm thinking about ways we should execute, we're moving together in the right path. That's one. Two is also just figuring out what that person values out of their working experience, right? If I'm coming in as a product manager, I might be replacing a product manager that was there before. Or I might just be new on the team and just be a new, different perspective, a new person they might be working with. And so my second thing to ask is like, as we continue to work together, what can I do to make this an important product that you work on? And to give an example, it's like the data scientist on our team, we had lunch, and she told me like, yeah, like more than happy to do data pulls and queries and whatever, but what would be really helpful for me is just making sure I have full context before I go into the rabbit hole of figuring out this stuff. So as I will go along this path and continue to have requests and ask her to solve some pretty difficult problems, I'll always make sure to go forth with that context so she doesn't feel like she's just going after problems without having that full context. And I think that has helped our working relationship, and that has helped me know that I can trust her with going about and doing the work that she needs to do, but also doing it in a way that she feels empowered to sort of solve the more difficult, high-level data problems that we're trying to solve as a group. So it's a little bit of a give and take. We've talked a little bit about onboarding. We've talked a little bit about sort of building up a level of structure and value capacity that Melissa talked about. But also product managers, and one of the things we spend a lot of time on is thinking how we can be as effective as possible or executing. And so I'm going to skip ahead here and just have everyone on our panel talk a little bit about what their day-to-day looks like. I'm going to kick things off with Han. And she'll be explaining to you how she executes.
I see how you're rotating this. Very clever.
I'm very clever.
So my day-to-day, I expect that everyone on this panel will have a really different answer. My day-to-day also varies depending on what part of the project we're on right now. So if I talk about it right now, I would say it's very different because we're about 2 days away from our major launch of the half. So the team is in a very high communications mode in general. So we're doing daily stand-ups where everyone talks about what they're working on that day, what's blocking them, what needs to be resolved immediately. And then I'm doing very frequent check-ins throughout the day with different teams to make sure that whatever is on their plate that we need done before launch is done. So that means talking to the engineers, making sure whatever high priority tasks they have are being completed, talking with our operations team, making sure that they're in constant communication with our customers to execute on the timeline that we need, coordinating schedules, kind of filling in for anything that needs to be done at the last minute. I'm not really thinking about, long-term strategy plans, here's what's gonna happen, the next half, here's what we're doing. It's really about locking down the team into a good execution path to get to launch.
Yeah, so every week is slightly different depending on what stage you are in the product development cycle. I think thinking about my week in a more general sense, there's kind of a breakdown of the days just based on how people work and how people's calendars operate. So Monday is usually the day where we have a lot of our weekly team meetings or syncs to understand like what did we do last week, what do we plan to do this week, what are blockers, right? Very standard like stand-up format. And we go through that, we make sure that people have the right things to work on for the week, that they can get started. If there are any larger questions, we can identify them ahead of time, start trying to unblock engineers, designers, data scientists. And if anything comes up that involves another team, then we can schedule a meeting for like a Thursday or something. Tuesday is my day to have one-on-ones. So I basically from the morning to the end of the workday, I have one-on-ones with the various team members, with managers, with people on other teams that I'm keeping up with and keeping in context. And so that day is a day to really dig into, okay, we had the weekly yesterday, right? We had a big team meeting yesterday. So today, now that you've had a bit of a day to work on those things, what are the things that you're finding? How's it going? How can I help you individually? Now that we don't have like 10 other people in the room, what are the things you're really thinking about and how can I help? So one-on-one day is Tuesday. On Wednesdays, Facebook, like many other tech companies, has a like no meetings Wednesday loose policy to encourage people to have time to focus. So for me, that's oftentimes when I do a lot of the writing and a lot of the synthesis that happens during the week. So summarizing things either from a previous week, from earlier on in the week, doing a lot of communication with other teams to post to them and be like, hey, this is what our team is working on that will impact you guys. Just want to give you a heads up, like let's set up a meeting if you're concerned. So Wednesday is the communication day. Thursday is a lot of those follow-up meetings with the other teams. And so either a regular check-in meeting with like a partner team that we're working with to make sure that they are also on the same page as we are. That if we say, hey, we have this launch date that we agreed on a few months ago, are you guys still on track for that? Like what is working with y'all? Or different meetings with like our legal teams, our policy teams. So like these more one-off functional meetings. And then Friday, a lot of the time, it's the like weekly synthesis of like, okay, what did we actually do? Did everything go as expected? If not, should we update? Like, what went wrong, if anything went wrong, and what can we improve next week? So it's kind of this weekly cycle of always just setting plans, working on them, and then making sure that the next week we do even better. I think there's this sort of existential crisis early on in my career of like, wow, all I do is I just set up meetings and I ask people the same questions and then I meet them one-on-one and then I meet other teams and ask them and it kind of feels like that, but what I've realized is that this sort of work is actually very important because what you find yourself doing is, we touched upon this earlier, is you just help other people, you empower other people to do their job better. You take care of all the things that they don't want to do or they can't do because they don't have the context. And you make sure that each person on your team, like each engineer, is confident that he or she is writing the most impactful code they can be. Like each data scientist is sure that the analysis they're working on is not a waste because we've already figured out everything to be able to tell them this is the most important question we need to answer. The designers who are doing their explorations can feel confident that they're not spending all their time thinking up and drafting up something that will get thrown away in a week because their priorities changed. Like, it's only because PMs are there to hold all of that together that teams are able to operate efficiently and confidently so that people just feel comfortable like making bold decisions or really investing in something because they know that it's been thought through. by somebody else that can vouch for them, that can explain the priorities to their managers or to other teams, and all of that really comes through communication.
Your day-to-day really depends on what type of product you work on, whether it's 0 to 1, it's a platform, it's a more urgent project. In that case, if it's more like Hans, if you want to make sure that you do check-ins regularly and really make sure everything is on track. So I had a project like that, but now what I'm working on, since it's a platform team, we did all of our kind of roadmap early on in the beginning that helped our execution a lot, because we knew what exactly to execute on, what's important, where are we gonna spend time on. So unless something changes midway, we exactly know what to do weekly when I created it in the beginning. So that kind of gives me the stable execution. And in the meantime, since my work involves lots of cross-functional teams, like lots of teams around the company, I just really need to make sure that we're on the same level in communication and they're bought in and they feel involved, that this is a good thing for us all. So I really spend a lot of time to achieve that. And at the same time, I spend time on thinking about what's the future of my product. So what is my vision of the future of the product and what I can leave, because the part of the RPMs that we're going to move on to the next rotation, what I can leave here before I leave to ensure that the execution will go through smoothly when I'm not here. So that's something I spend a lot of time on.
Yeah, I think one thing that I want to point out about execution, like as you mentioned, it's so different for the type of team you're on, the type of product you're on. But one thing that's really interesting about working at a place like Facebook, and it's kind of hit me the other day, might hit people a little bit earlier, is that it's one app. It's just one app on people's phones that tons and tons of teams are building different products and different features for. And so where that stretched me within working with my own team and creating execution cycles for my own team, I have to learn to also adopt the execution cycles in the company as a whole. And so I work within video ads, and I'm working on a new type of buying product so that advertisers can optimize for their video content being consumed in a different way. And for me, that just makes a lot of sense. We're gonna go ahead and go into Ads Manager and add a new option, and at the end of the day, that's gonna be that. But one of the things that I also have to keep in mind is that I'm not on the Ads Manager team. Or I'm not on the team that also thinks about ads as a whole. And I'm not on the team that also thinks about video content. And I'm not on the team that is responsible for measuring the metrics for video content. And it goes on and it goes on and it goes on. And so while I'm coming into the fray and I have an idea of how we should execute for the half, and I've conveyed to the team and we're all working against a similar goal, a large part of how I think about execution as well is how do I fit in within the execution flows of these other teams that exist. So do they have committees where people with product updates come and present? Do they do ad hoc meetings with their product leadership? Is it something that there's one or two people that I need to meet with and sort of get alignment from that I can go ahead and work for the half? Or are these people that I want to meet with on a weekly basis and continue to provide updates to? Does it make sense for us to, whatever software framework you're using for team organization, to pull them within your chat thread or pull them within a group and make sure that they're looped in all the time? Or are these things that they want a formal presentation on a less frequent basis? And so one of the things I've been figuring out is that it's not necessarily clear, right? Sometimes two teams haven't worked together before, and as a product manager, it's also within your role to figure out what is the best execution between teams in the long run. I think one of the special things about being in the RPM program is that we're on teams for a very short period of time, but we have to think about the teams like as if we're going to be there for a year or 2 years or even longer. And that forces us to think about the bigger picture. Because for all of us, eventually we're not going to be on the team again, but we want to set up as much as we can the right workflows, the right vision for these products so that when we leave, there's better structure and there's better process in place for someone else to execute and take things further after we're done. With that, I want to lead into another question within execution. I want to ask these guys. This is certainly something I've had to come to learn very quickly. But how do you guys think about leadership and influence on these teams when you might be coming in with being younger than the people that you're working with, or maybe coming in with less experience than the people that you're working with in terms of years? And how do you manage that? How do you make that into a successful experience? I don't think I can't ask and answer the question first. I'm going to pass it off to you.
All right. So in terms of leading and influencing others, I would say I take the approach of trying to prove that I'm not an idiot first. And that usually depends on who I'm talking to. So if I'm trying to build rapport with my data scientist, I'll prove that I have some experience with working with data, I actually understand what matters, and I'm not asking him just dumb data questions for the sake of getting an answer. If I'm working with engineering, I try not to impose a strong point of view from engineering, from product as to what the scope is, how long something will take, but rather try to seek to understand and really have a conversation with them. If I'm working with design or user research, I will take a very consumer-focused approach. So making sure that we're always talking about what we're prioritizing and what we're working on from the context of, is this good for the consumer? What does the consumer actually want? What have we heard? And so part of this is just knowing how to talk to different people and understanding what they care about as well.
Yeah, I think along similar lines, when you're talking to these people, I think the perspective that I've always kept is I'm always going to be in conversations with people that know more about what we're talking about than I do. Like, so when I'm talking to an engineer or a tech lead about how implementation is going for our platform or something, he's always going to know more than I do about what the actual details are, like how long something will take, what needs to be done next. Like, that is his expertise and that is his job. And so, it's okay that he knows more than I do. I think the leading and influence part comes from being able to pull in the broader perspective that, for example, if he's like, we have to do things this way, but I happen to know from other contexts that our designers have something else planned, and that it's that there's like a larger perspective to it than just the media project we're working on.